this story might stay with you. Some stories haunt you not for what you see, but for what you can't explain. In 1949, a Maryland boy faced something that defied science, faith, and reason. What happened in his home, and later in a St. Louis hospital, would inspire one of the most terrifying films ever made. This is the case of Roland Doe. January 1949. Roland Doe was 14 years old, living a quiet life in Cottage City, Maryland. He wasn't particularly social, shy, more comfortable indoors. His closest friend wasn't a classmate, but his Aunt Harriet. Harriet wasn't like other adults in his life. She was a spiritualist, a believer in the unseen. She introduced Roland to seances, spirit communication, and the Ouija board. When Aunt Harriet died unexpectedly in January 1949, Roland's world cracked. That's when the scratching began. At first it was faint, like mice inside the walls. But the sound grew louder, more deliberate, moving from the attic to the floors beneath his bed. Objects began to shift without explanation. A vase tipping over, a chair sliding a few inches. His mother swore she saw the heavy dining room table shudder and move on its own. Neighbors whispered about bad luck. But inside the Doe house, fear was setting in. February 1949. The strange activity didn't stop. It intensified. Roland's bed shook at night. His blankets were yanked away by invisible hands. His parents heard him speaking in low, guttural tones. Words that made no sense to them. But soon, those words did make sense to someone else. They were in Latin. And Roland had never studied Latin. That's when the marks started appearing on his skin. At first, they looked like scratches. Thin, red lines across his arms and torso. But then, they began to form shapes. Letters. Words. One night, his mother claimed to see the word Louis slowly etch itself into his skin, as if something was spelling a destination, disturbed and desperate. The Doe family went to their Lutheran pastor, Reverend Luther Schulze. He visited the house and witnessed objects moving on their own. He couldn't explain it. He told them the problem was beyond his help and suggested they contact the Catholic Church. March 1949. Father Edward Hughes, a Catholic priest, agreed to attempt an exorcism. Roland was taken to Georgetown University Hospital, where Hughes prepared for the ritual. The boy was strapped to the bed for safety. The prayers began. At first, Roland lay still. But as the words of the rite filled the room, his demeanor changed. His face twisted. He cursed in a deep, unnatural voice. Then, in an explosion of strength, Roland broke free from one of the restraints. His hand shot out, grabbed the metal bed spring, and slashed it across Hughes's forearm. Blood ran down the priest's arm. The ritual stopped. Hughes needed stitches. The case was now too dangerous and too strange for one man. The church decided to bring in a team. Late March 1949. Roland's parents, shaken by the failed exorcism, traveled to St. Louis to stay with relatives. They hoped distance would weaken whatever had gripped their son. Instead, it followed him. Their relatives reached out to Father William Bowden, a Jesuit priest. Bowden consulted with Father Raymond Bishop, who began keeping a detailed diary of the events. With them was Father Walter Halloran, a young priest who would later speak publicly about what he saw. The sessions began in late March. More than 30 exorcisms would follow in the coming weeks. The sessions. Witnesses described the room as a war zone. Roland's bed would shake violently, lifting off the floor. Holy water was flung back at the priests. Objects flew across the room, a bottle, a Bible, a chair, as if thrown by unseen hands. Roland's voice would change, dropping to a low, guttural tone. He spoke in Latin phrases far beyond his education. The marks returned, deep scratches forming before the priest's eyes. Words like hell and evil appeared on his skin. Father Halloran, who wasn't prone to exaggeration, later said plainly, "I saw those scratches appear in real time." The priests worked in shifts. Night after night, they returned to the ritual, each time facing the same violent resistance. April 18, 1949. By mid-April, the priests were exhausted. Bowden recorded in his diary that Roland's possession had reached its peak. The voice inside him had named itself, claimed dominion. That night, something changed. Roland suddenly screamed, not in his own voice, but in something louder, commanding, "Satan, I am St. Michael, and I command you to leave this boy now." Roland's body convulsed. He arched his back, muscles straining. Then, silence. His body went limp. His breathing slowed. When he finally spoke again, it was in his own voice. He told the priest he had seen a vision. A brilliant figure in white armor, wielding a sword, striking down a dark-horned creature. The battle was over. Aftermath. The next morning, Roland ate breakfast with his family. There were no more guttural voices, no more marks, no more shaking beds. He returned to school, grew up, lived a quiet life. His identity was never revealed to the public. Roland Doe is still a pseudonym. The priests who took part in the exorcism never retracted their accounts. Halloran admitted he wasn't certain it was literal demonic possession, but he could not explain what he saw. Not everyone believed. Psychologists have suggested Roland suffered from mental illness, possibly dissociative identity disorder or schizophrenia. Others argue it was a case of extreme attention-seeking behavior, fueled by grief and stress after his aunt's death. But even the skeptics struggle with the witnesses, priests, family, even hospital staff, who all claim they saw the same impossible events. In 1971, author William Peter Blatty published The Exorcist, basing much of his novel on the diaries of Father Bishop. The 1973 film adaptation became a global phenomenon, and for millions, it was their first brush with the story of Roland Doe. But while The Exorcist exaggerated many elements for horror, the real case is arguably more disturbing, because the people who lived through it insist it was real. Roland Doe's case remains one of the most famous and most debated exorcisms in history. Was it a rare, genuine encounter with something inhuman? Or was it the tragic collision of grief, belief, and a troubled young mind? The Catholic Church still holds the official records under lock and key. His real name remains hidden, and the diaries from 1949 still tell the same story, word for word. So what do you believe? Was Roland Doe truly possessed? Or was this one of the greatest psychological illusions ever witnessed? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more.